consume in such a way that will help maintain compassion and joy in us. And this is a very important teaching of the Buddha, mindful consumption. We need a book in order to teach us how to consume mindfully. There is among us a professor of nutrition, Professor Li Chun of Harvard University. She has written a book with Thich about mindful eating. She's somewhere here in the Sangha, and she will give us a presentation or two about the practice of mindful eating. And today, I would like to elaborate a little bit on the problem of on the teaching of the four nutriments. There is a sutra called the Sutra of the Sun's Flesh, given by the Buddha. And in that sutra, the Buddha talks about the four kinds of nutriments. And he advises us to consume in such a way that can retain peace and compassion in ourselves and help build peace and compassion in the world. And the first source of nutriment is edible food. And the Buddha told the story of a young couple who fled their country in order to take refuge in another country. This must be a true story. They left the country, they had to go through a desert, but they miscalculated. They did not bring enough food. So halfway to the desert, they ran out of food. And they knew that they are going to die with their little boy. So they were in despair. And then finally a thought came, a terrible thought, to kill the little boy. So the couple can eat the flesh of the little boy to survive. The reason like this is stupid to die three together. So maybe we should kill the little boy and use his flesh in order to eat and have a chance to cross the desert. And then we hope to give birth to another child. So with that kind of decision, they killed the little boy. And of course, they suffer very much while doing so. The sutra is called the Sun's Flesh. After having killed the little boy, each of them ate one morsel of that flesh and kept the rest on the shoulder to dry under the sun. For tomorrow, another piece, and continue to walk. This is tragedy. And each day after having eaten a morsel of that flesh, they beat their chest, they pulled their hair and said, "Our beloved son, where are you now?" They suffer a lot. But fortunately, they get out of the desert and were accepted as a refugee, as refugees in the other country. The Buddha must have heard that story directly or through someone. And there are stories like that happening a little bit in the world. We have to eat human flesh in order to survive. In Vietnam, there were periods of time when there was big hunger, and that happened. So after having told the story to the monks, the Buddha said, "My dear friends, do you think that the couple enjoy eating the flesh of their son?" Of course, the monks said, "No, dear teacher, it's impossible to enjoy eating the flesh of your own son." And the Buddha said, "In that case, we should practice eating in such a way that can keep compassion alive in our heart. Otherwise, we are eating the flesh of our own son." And if we look deeply into the present situation, you will see that we are doing like that couple. There are so many hungry people dying every day. Tens of thousands of children die every day because of the lack of food and the lack of nutrition. Meanwhile, in our society, we drink a lot of alcohol, we eat a lot of meat. In order to fabricate a piece of meat, you need a lot of grains. And if you reduce the meat eating by half and use the half amount of grain, you can save many children and adults in the world. So when we eat a piece of meat in mindfulness, we may see that we are eating the flesh of our own son. That little boy is our son. That little girl who died in Africa, in Asia, is our daughter. And when we drink a glass of alcohol, we know we need a lot of grain in order to make that amount of alcohol. We are really drinking the blood of our daughter, our son, because we are not aware there is no mindfulness. And that is why in the 5 contemplations of plumbless before eating, we know that we say that we should eat in such a way that can preserve compassion in us. Reduce the suffering of living beings. And eating like that, not only you can preserve your health, but you can preserve your compassion. A person without compassion cannot be a happy person. She is completely cut off. Without compassion and love, you cannot relate to the world, relate to anyone in the world. You are completely cut off. And that is why, according to this teaching, we should consume edible food in such a way that can preserve compassion in us. So we can refrain from eating the flesh of our own son and daughter and our mother, because the earth is our mother. We are not only eating the flesh of our son, our daughter, but we are eating the flesh of our mother. And many species have already died, vanished. So this is mindful eating, the object of the practice, the 5th mindfulness training. The second source of nutriment is sensorial impression. What we consume by the way of the eyes, or the ear can be highly toxic. What we consume like books, magazines, television, internet can be highly toxic. Even the news, the daily news can be highly toxic. When Thich was in India last time, he was invited to be guest editor of the Indian Times, the Times of India for one day. And Thich brought many assistants to come and help edit the newspaper. That the Times of India is the largest weekly of India. As we were sitting around the table, editors, we received the news from a state in India. Many bombs just exploded and many people died. Terrorist attacks. And one of the editors looked at Thich and said, "Dear Thich, what should we do in a morning like this when you hear that kind of terrible news? What a journalist like us, what an editor like us have to do and to react in a morning like this?" It's a difficult question. They have to report the news. And if they are full of despair and anger, the way they report will harm all of us. So Thich did not answer right away. He sit there and practice mindful breathing for 1 minute or so. And Thich said slowly, "Of course we have to report this news right away. But there are different ways of reporting. We should report in such a way that will not create more despair and anger in people, because they already have enough of that elements in them. If you don't know how to report, you will intoxicate people. Therefore, you have to practice breathing in and out and find ways to report in such a way that can help people have more understanding and compassion rather than more anger and more despair. And this is possible for a journalist. I don't know whether in School of Journalism they teach this, but this is very important. While reporting on the bombing, you can help people to see how come such a thing could happen. What is the roots? What is the roots of that ill being? You should report in such a way that we can see the terrorist. How a normal person could do such a thing. There must be a lot of despair and anger and violence and discrimination and hate in him, so he can do like that. And so far no one has helped him to transform the anger, the despair. So you can report the truth, but you can help people to understand. And when people understand, the anger can lessen. They don't lose hope. They know what to do, what not to do, what to consume and what not to consume, in order not to continue with this kind of consumption. So Thich's answer that morning is that we should reflect. We should look deeply into the matter, and we should report the event in such a way that will not increase the despair and the anger in the mind of people. Instead, we can help them to understand why it happens like that, and help their understanding and their compassion to increase. So we can make a big difference with the practice of meditation, looking deeply. And that day when I was invited to be guest editor of the Time of India, was the day commemorating Mahatma Gandhi, peace. And what I said that morning was reported in the front page of. There are many articles on the practice of non-violence, introducing the plum village practice. So when we read an article in the magazine, we consume. When we watch television, we consume. When our children watch television, go to the cinema, they consume. Not by the way of the mouth, but by the way of ear, nose, tongue, and so on. And we should consume in such a way that toxins will not be absorbed into our body and our mind. Toxins like craving, anger, fear, and despair. Advertisement, publicity, they water the seed of craving in us. Craving for sex, for wealth, for fame, and so on. So that is why we have to protect ourselves. And how? By practicing the fifth mindfulness training, mindful consumption. So for edible food, before eating we might breathe together and look at the food on the table to see whether they are sane, healthy or not. For the other items consumption like music, books, films, internet, we have to do the same. We know that what can bring toxins and anger and despair into us. The fact is that many of us feel lonely. We cannot face our loneliness. We feel alone. We lack love, we lack something like that in us. And we don't know how to generate love in order to fill ourselves with it. And when you are empty like that, when you have a vacuum in that, negative things can go in and fill it, and you suffer. And that is why we have to learn how to generate the energy of love, understanding, compassion, and joy. And the practice helps us to do so. And that practice can be taught to children also, so that they know how to create joy and happiness, and not to go and fill themselves with items that is full of craving and anger and despair. If many of us get sick because we keep ingesting these kind of toxins, namely anger, despair, fear, and craving. When you consume a Dharma talk, there's no toxin. In fact, there are many good things in it. Understanding, compassion, and so on. So there are many healthy items for us to consume, and we have to identify them, and we help our children to identify these wholesome kind of nutriment. There are plenty inside of us and around us. Walking meditation is also consumption. Using the energy of mindfulness, concentration, we touch the beauty of nature. We touch the love of Mother Earth, nourishing and healing. That is consumption. And the Buddha used the picture, the image of a cow with skin disease to illustrate this. There's a cow who has skin disease. She does not have skin anymore. And that is why when she lie down, all these tiny creatures in the soil come to her body and begin to suck the blood. When the cow approaches an ancient world, and then tiny creatures in the world will come out and suck the blood. The same thing is true when the cow rolls into the water. The small creatures in the water, they sense blood, they come and suck the blood. So the cow is without any protection. So if we do not have mindfulness of consumption, we are not protected. We allow these items of consumption to penetrate us, even if we don't want. Like driving through the city, you consume. Because the advertisements are there. The sound, the sight are there. They just penetrate into your body and mind, whether you like it or not. You are forced to consume, even if you don't want to consume. The noise, the suffering, the craving, the discrimination, all these kind of things. Toxins. We have created a world of toxins. And that is why we need something to protect us. We need skin, good skin. We need the fifth mindfulness training. We need the practice of mindful consumption. And mindful consumption is the way out. Because the world is sick, society is sick, and many of us are victims of despair and anger and fear. And the suffering of the mind brings about the suffering of the body. The suffering of the body brings about the suffering of the mind. We have that book written by Professor a professor of nutrition, Lilian Cheng. But we need more books on mindful consumption for the young people. And you can write in such a way that they like to read. I think we have to use their own experience of and happiness and suffering in order for them to be to enjoy reading our book. The third source of nourishment is volition. This is the energy that helps us to continue to live, because our life should have a purpose. The energy that keeps us active, alive, is volition. It's kind of desire, aspiration. We have Bodhisattva called the Bodhisattva of great aspiration, Kshitigarbha. Kshitigarbha liked to be with the people who suffer. And he chose to go to the realms of hell. Hell is a little bit everywhere. Sometimes hell is in our own family, our own community, our own nation. We are hating each other, we are killing each other, we are using bombs and guns to kill each other. We belong to the same family, or the same nation, the same community. the same race. So hell is a little bit everywhere. And Kshitigarbha Dietang is someone who like to go to these areas in order to help. It's difficult. You have to be fresh. You have to be patient. You have to be armed with non-fear. You come not to blame, but to help stop fear, anger, violence. You come to offer understanding and compassion. You know how to generate the energy of understanding and compassion. And you will help people in that area to do the same. With understanding and compassion, they will stop killing each other and making each other suffer. And that is the desire, the volition of Kshitigarbha. Shakyamuni Buddha also has a desire. That deep desire keeps him active during the years of practice and keep him on his path of teaching and helping. We need volition, we need the energy of desire in order to continue to live. Otherwise, you want to die. People who commit suicide because they do not have any desire, the will to live. They have lost their élan vital. So this is a source of nutriment. And the Buddha advised us to get healthy kind of volition. If your volition, if your desire is to punish, to venge, and then that is not a good kind of nutriment. The terrorist, their deepest desire is to punish and to make suffer. And sometimes in the name of God, in the name of love, in the name of social justice. If you do not have enough hate and understand and anger, you cannot be a terrorist. You need that kind of nutriment in order to be a terrorist. If you have true love in you, you have compassion and understanding, you cannot be a terrorist. Because you don't have that kind of nutriment that can make a terrorist. So a terrorist is someone who suffers deeply within himself. And so far no one has helped him to transform the energy of anger, of violence, of despair. So that kind of vision, that kind of looking deeply help you not to hate the terrorist. And you may have a desire to help him to suffer less. Because you have a good volition, good desire. You don't want to punish even criminals, terrorists, and so on. If you need to lock him up, you go ahead and looking him up, but that is done with compassion, not with the intention to punish. So the motivation should be good volition, compassion, understanding. Sometimes you need strong measure, but these strong measures are not to punish, but to help. There's love in it. In Asia, when you go to a temple, you cross the gate of temple and you can see two kinds of guardians, and one is very fierce, is ready to strike you if you do something wrong. And there is the other so gentle. And both of them have compassion in them. Because they look like they're very fierce, ready to punish, but inside they are very compassionate. Sometimes you look very strong, you look very fierce, but inside of you there is only compassion. And that is the Bodhisattva of compassion sometimes behave like that. So we should not be fooled by the outer appearance. A teacher should be sometimes very gentle, but sometimes very tough. So Siddhartha was motivated by the desire to suffer less and to help other people suffer less. He was frustrated because of the situation in his country. His father was a king, but helpless. There's corruption in the government, but his father could not do anything. He had to lean on these corrupted people to continue his rule. And the suffering, not only in the population, but also in the government. And that is why Siddhartha did not want to continue, did not want to be a politician. Because if he succeeded to his, continue his father, he would be in the same kind of situation. He will feel helpless. He will see suffering around him and cannot do anything because he doesn't know how to handle the suffering inside of him either. So there is an insight and a determination and a desire in him to practice in order to transform himself. And after that, help other people. That is a wholesome desire. That is a good volition. But if someone is motivated by the desire to kill, to punish, to destroy, that person suffers and make other people suffer. And if your desire is to run after more fame, more power, more sex, more money, and that can bring you a lot of suffering. Because there are those of us who destroy our body, our mind, just running after these objects of craving. And they are not happy. So true happiness should be produced by good volition, good desire, and not bad desire. So the practice is to sit down and look into the nature of our desire, to find whether they are good desire, wholesome volition or not. Because that is the energy that can pull us, carry us into the realm of suffering or happiness. And this is a source of nutriment. And the Buddha goes very deep as far as food is concerned. And volition is the third source of nutriment. And the fourth is consciousness. This is something like a collective energy of a group. And even if you don't want to consume, you consume. When you come to Plum Village and meet a group of people practicing mindful breathing, mindful walking, dealing gently with the body and the feelings, you feel a collective energy of peace, mindfulness, and gentleness. And you consume. That kind of collective energy is very wholesome. And even babies, they feel it. They feel the energy of calm and compassion. So they are being nourished by that, even if they don't want to consume. But there are environments when the collective energy is not like that. It's full of fear, anger, despair. And if you go there and stay for a few hours, you consume, whether you want or not. And you got a lot of toxins. That is environment. Collective energy of consciousness. So if you live in an environment where there's plenty of hate and despair, and if even you don't want to hate to despair, you will get it. And one day you will manifest despair and hate because you consume of the collective energy of a group. And therefore, we have to be very careful. We have to look into our neighborhood to see whether the place we live is toxic or not. Because people living together in that place, together they engender, they generate a collective feeling, a collective energy. And day and night we continue to guard that kind of energy into our body and self. When you go to a room, to a place, you may feel the energy positive or negative. When you sit close to a person, you can feel pleasant or unpleasant. Because he is emitting that kind of energy. And you consume. That is why we have to be careful to choose the place to live for us or for our children. The mother of Mencius, Mạnh, illustrious Chinese philosopher, Mencius. She lived in a neighborhood where the children did not get any education. And one day, her little boy came home miserable. He just had a fight with the boys in the hamlet. And his face is full of dirt and blood and things like that. He was being influenced by the boys in the area. And she was working hard. She's weaving. She's making silk. And she saw him coming home like that. She stopped working and she meditated. And after a few minutes, she resumed her work silently. And during that time, she determined to move to another place. She wanted to work harder in the night in order to have enough money in order to move to another quarter. Because she knows that if she continues to live in this quarter, her boy will be spoiled. She did not have to tell his boy. So that story is recorded. So after sometimes having got enough money she moved to a place where the children are neat, clean and more polite and so on. And they went to school, and then the little boy also liked to go to the school. Asked her the permission to go to school with other boys, and later he became a great philosopher. So the environment is very important. And if you say that our environment is toxic, you have to decide, like the mother of Mencius, you have to move away. You have to choose a kind of neighborhood that can provide us with a healthier collective energy. And this is what the Buddha proposed. Otherwise, every day we will be penetrated by many arrows of suffering, of hate, of anger, of fear, of despair.